damp. So you need a yang style. You have to understand, make lists, be careful, this is wrong, this is right. Discriminating, you need a yang style. America is nothing if not a yang style. So you drag something over, the part of it that needs a yang style will succeed and grow. Religions, whatever, part of it requires yang style will grow. Acupuncture is very young. The nature of the qi and the movement of qi is extremely young. Therefore, you need a yin style. And that doesn't fit schools, that didn't fit anything, that doesn't fit licensing, it doesn't fit anything. And you learn, acupuncture develops from touch and from basic things and so on like that. Until America, nobody even conceived how you could license acupuncture, or even thought you would want to, which is a whole new idea. It was just, do I license touching, and what do I do? And you can have really deep needles, and you could have needles and this, and do all sorts of stuff again to create young, different kind of events like that. But the second thing about the style is the herbalist has to be in charge. There are side effects, there are difficulties. You have to be in charge. You're taking responsibility. The patient can't fix it for you. You're in charge. Acupuncture, the basic truth of acupuncture is that all you ever do is help the body help itself. All you ever do is give advice to a far more complex entity than you. That is the person's own qi organization. You are never more than somebody who whispers to the head committee or something like that. Never anymore. Acupuncture is always relationship, and there's always an implied passivity. That's the way you get an excellent result. Comfortable with passivity and comfortable connecting to other people, and not to need to be in charge. And acupuncture is very safe for that reason, because the person's own body makes it safe. You don't make it safe. The person's own body makes it safe. And so then it becomes very, very different than other kinds of health care that you bill for, weapon-related health care, power-related health care. And it becomes an entirely different thing, and it had to fit into a box. And the Chinese invented this box, TCM, because they wanted tourists. You can't be like Marion Lee and not have a theory of how it works, right? Because the Westerner wants to have a theory of how it works. I studied with so-called witch doctors in Malaysia for a while, and I would ask him about this. No, you just did what you felt like. I said, you realize everybody analyzes all these statements you make to find out the theories. I know that. But it's like a theory of childcare, or a theory of relationship, or a theory of something like that. You can patch one on secondarily and patch it around a little bit, but these are human activities that you do. And if they aren't human activities you do, then you're not doing them very well. And so nobody's going to care what your theory is. And if you do it well, you don't have a theory. You can patch one on. But you, and see, that's where the textbook and the school leave you in the lurch, because they don't give you a basic way of looking at these things. And therefore you can't solve any other problem. You're just left. Now, in terms of treatments, We did a school for a while. I trained 6 people from nothing to passing the NCCA. So Lee and I knew a little more than they did, just had time to write out these things. And passing the NCCA, you had to learn all these words, but they also had to do treatments because that's the way the clinic would stay busy. You start out with simple things. You do what's comfortable. I mean, how do you learn how to be a counselor, for instance? And being an acupuncturist and a counselor are very similar things. Rather than, a counselor is not a therapist, right? They're not. They're working with the person. So how do you learn to do that? How do you learn to be a friend? How do you learn to be a mentor? You start in trial and error. Certain things go right and certain things don't. Acupuncture is God's gift to trial and error. Oh, I forget whether that's on the outside or the inside. Well, you put it on both sides, right? The one side will be irrelevant, and the other will be the right point. You're talking to somebody, I'm not sure what I should say. You spread it out, and then it gets there. And then you are learning the way you learn your own personality, the way you learn your own speech patterns, the way you learn your own behavior. Acupuncture, you learn the same thing. And if you're good at it, and if you're mentored well, having a mentor and somebody you can model after, tremendously useful. Tremendously useful. This is not to say training isn't important, but it's a different kind of training. Although a lot of the time mixing herbs is not a bad thing to do to learn herbs either. But this is it's relationship. And people have their own style because they just have to have their own style. If somebody comes to me, I feel suicidal. Well, that's my job to be able to deal with that. But there might be 20 other people with the same job. They're going to approach it differently. And on a different day, I might approach it differently. I have to use the tools I have. And acupuncture is touching, it's reciprocity. You're using the tools you have on that particular day at that particular time. And you need to develop a confidence about that. And the way to develop confidence is to doing the treatments over and over and over. I would teach point location, actually, because there are points that are important to know about. I would do one side of the body and then the student at the other side. You can teach people on the back, and you need to teach people feeling points by touch and so on. I had an experience when we started. The best way to deal with the NCCA is to help write it, then you never have to take it. And that was, boy, I knew that was clear. And so we helped write it, and I brought in 2 Chinese colleagues who had never met each other before, who were different ages and different backgrounds and so on. So we were writing these questions, and they wrote out one question together. What is the first point you think of that deals with digestive problems and gynecological problems? The right answer and the 4 answers were any tender point near spleen 6. All right? That was the basic mistake that they saw. And when the Chinese folks write spleen 6, they don't mean spleen 6. They mean anything in the area. Why should they have been so precise with it? Look at those original drawings in the book of Chinese meridians. You have these big, fat, weird-looking people like that. And he said, oh, the Chinese were really primitive. They couldn't. No, they weren't. They were drawing all these characters. They've been doing it for 1,000 years. They were not really primitive. That's the whole point. The Tao Te Ching is the whole point. You have to be familiar with these things. They all knew that. They didn't have to repeat the Tao Te Ching in the acupuncture book. That would have been nuts. But you have to understand it. And these things were done. And you change it around where the point is some sort of imitation pharmaceutical product or something.